Thank you. Happy. Hello, everyone. Right now I'm making up some materials that we could not finish yesterday from yesterday's program by Ani Sanjiao, Venerable Ani Sanjiao, with a lot of participants, like around 25 of us, at a French-style restaurant, veggie restaurant in Da'an district in Taipei. It was a program, veggie lunch banquet with Dharma talk from Venerable Ani Sanjiao yesterday, and some of the English translation was left out. So we are making it up now. So from the beginning, Ani said, hello everyone, welcome to this wonderful restaurant called Anna French Style Veggie Restaurant. And on the table you can see candles lighting up, sort of like our butter lamps. Today we have 2 English translators and people with different, going abroad experiences. People have kind of studying overseas experiences. So it's making Ani to think about the international experiences in Qing Dynasty. And then Ani says that, sorry, we need to move our program a little bit early than scheduled, because she has so much to say and not enough to be translated. So, and then to be given to all. So a lot of times in the middle of the night, Ani couldn't sleep and had to go over a lot of materials, reading materials, as well as internet materials to come up with what to be given at the program. And today is the second series about recognizing your destiny. And today we're going to talk about Princess Wenchen. And then, so Ani now, later, Ani then address about Princess Wenchen's story. Some people say that she is like a returning Bodhisattva from the past. And then Princess Wenchen, you could hardly find her stories very much in the history. And she was only probably less than 18 years old, and probably only 16-something years old. Let's say 18 years old, and she was married by the king, by the emperor in Tang Dynasty, to be married to the king in Tubo Dynasty at the age of 18, probably that less than that. That's not the real age, and he said. That's just let's say it's 18, and then she probably was just forced, not really out of her own willingness, to be married to this king of Tubo Dynasty. And then the whole wagon train had to, with the princess, had to walk for probably over 33 years old, all the way from China at that time, around the 7th century, to go all the way to Tibet, which was then that time called Tubo Dynasty, to be married to King Songzang Campbell. And then the king was probably a man with, a lot of mustache, and then probably hairy all over. And then a young girl like her at that time probably had no idea what to do. And she was only married to him. Well, she was, the king was, the marriage, as far as we know from the history, the marriage was only for about nine years. And then the king, Songzang Campbell, passed away, died after 9 years of marriage. So this princess Wenchen was pretty much left by herself alone in Tibet. She is a foreigner. She was a foreigner at that time. She had probably no mastery of Tibetan language nor Tibetan living skills. So such a bodhisattva like her was reborn to this world. What was her mission then? What was for her to do at that time then? We can today maybe address a little bit her story, or from her story we can learn about the compassion of love and the compassion of knowing your destiny, and compassion of your how to make aspirations. And then Ani addressed about what is samadhi, what is religion. And then there was slides shown on the screen yesterday at the restaurant talking about samadhi and religion. With regards to the definition of religion, which was read and recited yesterday and also quoted by Ani, everyone can find this English in Wikipedia on the internet. So I'm not gonna to say more about that. So there was a part from yesterday reciting the definition of religion, and then also some parts about talking about samadhi. And then Ani, after that, Ani then was talking about after the religion. She says that religion actually is for us to learn how to be harmonized with each other, how to harmonize with one another in different kinds of activities. For example, Ani said that in past years, we went to India for Gajmalam prayers, and then we had experiences of receiving Dharma from His Holiness Kamaba as he was sitting above on the high seat, and then the audience like us just had tea beneath him, and then it was just because it was really impossible to make so many breaks. So even the Dharma was in the middle of the Dharma was given, there was a tea break. So it's an example of harmonizing with each other. And then in the old days, and he says that in the old days in history, a lot of times emperor or king had to control or make a better control over their people. So they would order people to go in certain ways. Even in the Buddhist temples, they had to divide the participants into the east and the west, how to stand and how to behave according to the female, and then according to standing in line, that the females had to standing aside from the males, one in the east and one in the west in the shrine hall, things like this. So it's just a way of administrating people to make things in order. So I don't think Tibetan Buddhism is not having any order or having any principles. It's just like at that time, back then in Tibet, still nowadays, during winter time in Tibet, the weather is very, very cold. It's freezing. So the teachers have to give Dharma talks above, and the great participants have to then underneath having their breakfast or meals, such as having tea or bread at the same time, because it was just too cold, and then people have to have their meals at the same time, and there's no better place or better timing to do. So let's not just judge people from the external forms. Like me, you might just see me playing a lot on with my mobile, and but a lot of time I'm just looking up for materials from the internet. So I'm not just playing games. I barely do that. I'm not playing games with my mobile. Instead, I am looking for information with my cell phone. So it's just a way to say that we shouldn't judge people from the external forms. And then Ani had someone read material about samadhi. So it's in English as samadhi is the 8th part of the 8th noble truth in the Buddhist teaching. The original meaning for samadhi is about the cessation of the activities of the self. Nirvana, the inability to use linear thinking, nor is to enter a dual thinking mode. Nirvana is the ability. Nirvana is about the inability to use linear thinking nor to enter a dual thinking mode. This is a construct of a self. The average person satisfies the practice of self through various kinds of ways, such as getting money, social status, doing meditation, or getting empowerment. But under a strong ideology like this, we move instead towards a stronger state of desire. So we are getting more and more desire. So the more we want to let go of the more we want to let go, but normally we end up with adding more. And the more we add, the more we cannot think. We think we have a very big, great dream, which is Nirvana will eventually be reached through practice. This film, Samadhi, says about that the faith is about accepting. There's a film called Samadhi. You can Google it up on the YouTube, called Samadhi. Samadhi film says about the faith, says that faith is about accepting something on a spiritual level, a form in which the mind marks or controls experiences. It brings self-comfort and self-confidence. Faith is completely the opposite. With faith, we can stay completely in the unknown. Accepting the self-construct is operated by the unconsciousness. Everything you want to get, but what is brought to you is the unexpected. So there's a reading or recitation from Chinese material about samadhi, a part of it. And then Ani shares about some Buddhist terminologies in Chinese, and basically it's about how a practitioner have to reach or attain enlightenment. It normally takes more than 3 great kappas, three great kappas to be able to attain the supreme enlightenment. That means limited or limited time. So Ani says that in receiving Buddhist teachings, in practicing Buddhist teachings, we need to cultivate ourselves, not only by practicing, but also at the same time engaging in a lot of Buddhist text readings. And then we need to use a lot of reading materials and tools, such as dictionaries and references. And then Ani showed to the audience at the scene in the restaurant big, thick dictionaries in Chinese about Buddhism. So and some other textbooks about Buddhism. So Ani was showing to the audience, the participants, that we really need to dive in and dig deep into Buddhist teachings and texts and commentaries by using a varieties of references and tools such as dictionaries or online materials and dictionaries, as long as with the paper or printed dictionaries and referential tools. And then Ani went on to say that a lot of people said goes on to say more about Princess Wenchen, and she said a lot of people were saying that Princess Wenchen was a reborn goddess, but even though she was a reborn goddess, she still had to do a whole lot in Tibet. When she was alive, she still had to do a lot of things there. Nowadays, we then need to do even more. We need to incorporate international views and international scope of views. Like me, Ani said that now I need to, even though I'm sick, I still need to learn as an Ani how to spread Dharma by sharing myself or sharing what I have got from Buddhist teachings in situations like this, and then to give a little bit Dharma sharing. Ani said that I would like to share a lot more materials in the future if I can. And then we just learned from Princess Wenchen. She went from China to Tibet just in a silent way. She was not bragging herself nor showing too much, so you could barely find much information left in the history about her. And as far as what we have found lately about this topic, the Princess Wenchen, is that nowadays, up until now, there's still ceremonies or kind of like memorial activities going on in Tibet twice a year to for Tibetan people to memorize this Princess Wenchen. And she was, back then, she also taught Tibetan people how to grow vegetables, a kind of vegetable in Chinese called you cai. And also she taught Tibetan people how to grow tea and make butter tea and things like that. She worked really hard. It was said that a practitioner has to spend 1 great kappa to eliminate some ignorance. 1 million kappa is about 10,000 years. So with that so many years, we can only eliminate some of our ignorance or defilements or afflictions. We need to really work harder and in diligence to cultivate ourselves, to cultivate our understandings about ourselves. Even for a reborn Bodhisattva or reborn goddess like Princess Wenchen, she had to work so hard to continue with her practices. So let alone about us. And then Annie took herself as an example. Like me, I have to find my own quality to know about myself. For me, I know that I have this habit of liking to learn a whole lot of different things. So for me, the sutra, the flower ornament sutra, is more appropriate for me. Why? Is because I like to learn a lot with a different range of learnings. This is me. So I'm learning about myself. So I'm learning to know about myself. That is why I choose to read the sutra, the flower ornament sutra, because it fits for me. I would like to be like the sadhana in the sutra, going to find 53 teachers in different places. And this will be a good learning model for me, role model for me. And it's not really good. It's just not really suitable for me to behave myself, to go morning prayer and evening prayer like the regular other Chinese or Taiwanese Sangha, going for a morning prayer and evening prayer at fixed time or timetable. Also, again, I need was addressing about Princess Wenchen. She says that we can see from Princess Wenchen's story about her sacrifices, about her giving of herself to the Tibet at that time. She was left alone by herself after the marriage, the 9-year marriage, after the king of Songtsan Khampo passed away. She lived her own life with the great Tibetan people for 34 more years, and then sacrifices of she had to make so many sacrifices and giving. Then there was playing. There was another recitation or reading about the topic of samadhi from a YouTube film. But we didn't play out this film. We just read about in Chinese about this topic of samadhi. And then it was translated later on by another English translator, so I'm not going to address it here. And Annie went on to say that Princess Wenchen, it took her probably 3 to 5 years for her whole wagon train to reach, to go from China and then reach the Tibet that time. And then she need to spend the rest of her life, 34 more years later on, to practice herself in this region of Tibet at that time called the Tubo Dynasty. And then, so for a bodhisattva like her, had to do so much. For people like us, if we wanted to reach samadhi within this lifetime, it's not gonna be very feasible. It's gonna be really, really difficult. As we can think of Princess Wenchen, she is just a little girl, a teenage girl, as fragile as her. How can she mingle herself to get along with the Tibetan people at that time, back then? It's of course was very, very challenging for her. And as so, if you are not an enlightened one, you'd better just to practice as hard or even double hard as Princess Wenchen, just to take one step at a time in your practice. We couldn't help thinking hard. Many people now say that they have entered samadhi, found enlightenment, and are capable of helping others to get out of illusion and get money as well. The Buddha said that he had received samadhi, he had reached samadhi, and yet he still, as far as we know, he still was eliminating blatant pride at his time in his practice. Still, so we have to understand who I am. Awakened self. If you think you are awakened self, or that you are awakening, this is a wrong distinction in the brain. So what is the big difference between big compassion and small compassion? And Ani went on to say, a lot of people are saying that they are practicing meditation or Zen, but in actuality, they cannot even stabilize their mind. Their mind is very scattered, very absent-minded. A lot of people just sit there pretending they are meditating, pretending, or me also. A lot of people like us just sit there, pretend that we are meditating. We are meditating, but we just shake our bodies there as if we are like enlightened. And then we still need a lot of great masters to come to help us to handle our afflictions, to teach us, and then to handle our problems. So we end up to find a lot of teachers, one teacher after another, and then we ask a lot of questions, one question after another. But we still haven't been able to solve our fundamental problems or a lot of our problems. For example, as we recite the Siddhikapa Sutra, 地藏经, Siddhikapa Sutra, or the original vow of Siddhikapa Sutra. When we recite the sutra, we don't just recite alone, word by word. We also need to look up a lot of information that we don't understand in the sutra. But even with doing this, it won't solve our own problems. We still need to turn inward to recognize and to face and really to find out, to know about ourselves. And then we need to practice hard from the flaws or mistakes that we have made. We learn and practice from the mistakes we have made. The whole life of Wen Chen has been given to the Tibetan people. The whole life of Wen Chen was given to the Tibetan people, and she had made a lot of sacrifices to say about no matter what, we just have to love others. So this is telling us we can learn from her that no matter what, we can try our best to love others. There are so many different kinds of tribes or different ethnic background people with different ethnic background and cultural background. We can try our best to love different people with different background, with different ethnic background, cultural background, and language background. So we have so much to learn and to do. It's not gonna. So in Tibetan Buddhism, a lot of people think that they have some sexual practices or things like that, but I don't think so. Ani says that there is so much to be done, such as the 10th Prajnaparamita practice has to be done. There's not much time left to do to engage yourself in the sexual conducts as a way of practice. It's just not a way to do, and it's not really the core practice in Tibetan Buddhism, as far as I know. Ani says about. And then there was a second part of sharing in Ani's talk from yesterday, and there was YouTube film was played out about Princess Wen Chen and the 12 temples. So it was in Chinese, and now I'm trying to do a little bit translation in English. Tibet is a region in the Tibet is a region located in the southwest of China and is known as the Snowy Plateau. The Himalayas are known as the roof of the world. The emperor of Taizong in Tang Dynasty ordered a court painter, Yang Li Bian. Yang Li, excuse me, the Yan Li Ben. The emperor of Taizong in Tang Dynasty used to order a court painter, Yan Li Ben, to paint a painting called Emperor Taizong Receiving the Tibetan Envoy, also called Bu Nie Tu, a painting on silk to show the friendly encounter between the Tang Dynasty and Tibet. At that time, Tibet was called Tobo Dynasty. The painting illustrated Princess Wen Chen's marriage to Songzan Campbell, the king of Tibet, the king of Tobo Dynasty that time. Princess Wenchen spreaded the Han Dynasty culture, consolidated the turmoil between Tang Dynasty and the Tubo and the Tubo region. She brought with her a 12-year-old life-size Shakyamuni statue, Maitreya Bodhisattva statue, many vegetable seeds, tea, books, arts and crafts. All of these played a very important role in the Tibetan cultural and economic development. According to legends, she is a Taoist goddess. She is a Taoist goddess. She also helped the Tibetans know about feng shui. Feng shui is also known as Chinese geomancy. She helped the Tubo and Tang dynasty build and maintain friendship and cultural exchange. In the 14th year of the Emperor Taizong, Songzhan Campbell sent an envoy to Tang dynasty to request for a marriage with a princess. There is only the Emperor Taizong on the bunietu, on the painting, silk painting that we just talked about. The emperor's carriage, in the painting, the emperor's carriage had no wheels and were carried by only fragile maids. One person in red dress is the official in the royal court, and the envoy Lu Dongzan stands aside. The last person is an interpreter. There are 9 palace women. The carriers look at ease, very comfortable. However, there is no Princess Wenchen, and there is no King Songzhan Campbell in this painting. The King Campbell builds the Potala Palace. He builds the Potala Palace in order to marry Princess Wenchen. The Potala Palace is a 9-story palace, divided as the Red House and the White House. According to the legend, they used to, Princess Wenchen and the King Songzhan Campbell used to live in the Dharma King Shrine, which now has been destroyed. Songzhan Campbell went to Bohai himself. Bohai is a place in China himself to receive the Princess Wenchen to be his wife. Tibetan people welcomed Princess Wenchen with jiaxie dance. The songs and the 9 dragons symbolize the hardship of Princess Wenchen's long journey. What then? Princess Wenchen began work and taught Tibetans to grow vegetables. She invented butter tea, Tibetan milk tea. She wasn't at all like the internet celebrity nowadays called Li Ziqi. What Princess Wenchen promoted was the traditional Chinese culture, the Tang Dynasty society, and living culture, as well as, most importantly, the Buddha Dharma. Buddhism was at the highest peak, shining the glorious lights in the Tang Dynasty. In the next 30 years, it was said that Princess Wenten had a very rough life. Some people said that she wrote the Heart Sutra for about 30 years. It's a pity for such a bodhisattva. The princess of the Tang Dynasty, Princess Wenten, left very little of trace about her life story in the history. Yet, up until now, there are ceremonies twice a year by Tibetans to honor the Princess Wenten. It can be seen that as she glanced the last look on Chang'an at the mountain Riyue, she was letting go of all she had. The dreams and love belonged to a woman. She had only a few years of marriage, and then she was alone again. She was in such a difficult environment, and in there she created her passion of love. Her compassion of love, compassion of destiny, and compassion of aspiration. In fact, Tibet is a pure land, a Buddhist nation. It's a sacred Vajra place. Following, we are going to enjoy and then there was furthermore reading. Then Ani shared about temple. Okay, and then about this film, it was film about Princess Wenten and 12 temples in Chinese from YouTube. You can Google it up. It's called 文成公主和12镇魔图. So I'm trying to do a little bit translation in English here. 2 Nobulinka tankas, each 1.5 meter in length and 0.7 in width, recollected by Tibetan Cultural Bureau in 1991. These 2 tankas from Nobulinka were found to be mystical maps in which there was a lying witch, or you can call a lying Orgus, suppressed in huge rage. Looking closely to these tankas, it was found that those were printed in the tankas matching with the monasteries in Tibet, China, as well as the monasteries in... Looking closely, it was found that these 2 tankas were matching with the monasteries in Tibet, China, as well as in Nepal. Later, it was proved to be a resemblance of a legend for the past 1,000 years about the Princess Wenten and the 12 geomatic temples, which was believed to hold down the huge Ogress. These 2 tankas were further investigated by Tibetan Cultural Bureau of China to be very likely dated back at the time of Princess Wenten's passing for about 600 to 1,000 years, and now are considered as very precious artworks, treasured and descended by royal families at Nobulinka noble Inca from the Tobo region, generation and passed down generation after generation. And therefore, these two tanka are famous with the name of Tibetan witching suppressing painting, and nowadays are exhibited throughout the China's art galleries. Let's take a look at the meanings behind the painting. In 634, King Songzhan Kempo of the Turbo dynasty requested a marriage alliance, while Taizong of Tang dynasty was considering his request. Yung Hun Prince, another prince, also arrived at Chang'an and made the same request. As Tibet was an obscure and distant kingdom to the Tang dynasty, Taizong granted the prince to another king in different region and rejected Songzhan Kempo's request. Songzhan Kempo was then offended by this rejection. He sent his army to attack Tuyuhan. And Tuyuhan was quickly defeated and incorporated into the Tibetan empire. Songzhan Kempo again demanded the princess for marriage. Taizong again rejected the request and dispatched an army to attack the Tibetans, but was defeated. In the year of 641, Songzhan Kempo requested the marriage again, and this time Taizong granted Princess Wenchen to be his wife. It was said that the whole shape of Tibet was actually like a lying or ogress, and the Potala Palace, where the Princess Wenchen was received by the King Songzhan Kempo, was the heart. And then the Potala Palace, where the Princess Wenchen was received by this King Songzhan Kempo. The Potala Palace was actually at the heart of the lying ogress. So who was the one set this whole up? Could it be the first wife of Songzhan Kempo, the princess Brikuti Devi of Nepal? One day, as Princess Wenchen reached Lhasa, the whole wagon train was falling into a swamp, and Wenchen called for a stop and ordered a composition wrapped with white curtain with a life-size Shakyamuni Buddha statue brought by China to be placed in the middle, and further started the construction of a temple, which is now called Romoche Temple. Days after Princess Wenchen reached the Potala Palace, the Potala Palace was initially built for giving a better house for Princess Brikuti Devi of Nepal, but then happened to be done at the time as Princess Wenchen arrived, and this seemed to be a great gift for Wenchen. This inevitably made Princess Brikuti somewhat jealous. King Songzhan Kempo then inquired Princess Wenchen's traveling experiences. First, he reflected on what had happened, and then he revealed his worries to Wenchen about the belief that the Tubo people was believed to be the descendants of monkeys and the ogress. And even though they had conquered the Bun people, the Tubo emperor, the two-board empire, so far did not contain strong cultural foundations enough to incorporate other cultures. So he had to incorporate other cultures from Nepal and Tang dynasty through marriages to strengthen his region. As Wen Cheng heard of this, she shared a book on Chinese feng shui to Song Zhan Campbell, saying that the Bun people wanted to aggregate the ogress, and the Buddha statue could exert some relief. Yet, after some time, the relief power from the Buddha statue would be dying down. However, there could be a construction of 12 geometric temples built upon the joint parts of the ogress. If there could be a construction of 12 geometric temples to be built on the joint parts of the ogress, a full and forever quail over the ogress will be happening. Wen Cheng stated that the lake behind the Palace was actually the door to the heart of the ogress, and proposed the idea of building a temple on top of it as the principal temple for the next 12 temples. So as soon as the jealous Princess Brukuti heard of Wen Cheng's idea, she then brought her own another life-size Buddha statue and started a team to build the temple herself. But no matter how many times she had tried to build the temple again collapsed at the end of the day. And after several months of such reoccurrences, an investigation team was done to figure out the fact that the lake base had been eroded, and somehow no sand could then be filled in. Princess Wen Cheng then suggested Song Zhan to order white sheep team to carry sand to fill the lake base. Furthermore, he needed to take out the royal family ring and throw the ring into the lake to cease the erosion and finish the temple construction. This is the temple built nowadays called the Johan Temple. Together with the two life-size Buddha statues, one removed from Ramoche Temple and the one in Johan Temple, the ogress was then put down. Then 12 geometric temples was successively built around at the places of the organs, shoulders, hips, body, arms, legs, and etc. to complete the whole project. Still, the ogress was restless. And so Wen Cheng built more and more temples for up to 100 temples in Tibet. In addition, there were stupas, and many god and goddess temples were also built till her age of 50-something, and then she died. All of this above gradually subsided the power of the ogress. During these 30 years, Song Zhan and Princess Brukuti, both passed away, and only Wen Cheng survived and was there finishing the construction plan and fighting or struggling with the ogress. And the bone temple, and the bone people. She was there alone to establish. She was there alone to establish a good foundation for Tibetan Buddhism. So it was kind of like a summary of English translation for this film from YouTube called 文成公主 and 12正魔图. And then Annie went on to share, because more and more audience were then coming in to the restaurant. She greeted everyone and welcomed everyone, and she then announced that there will be gifts that our center had purchased as sort of like charity services from people who were in need. And the gifts were veggie crackers. So Annie wanted everyone to wait till the program the program end. Probably will be the program will probably end it around 2:30. So don't leave until then. Then you will get these cracker gifts from our team. Also, we would also give away some veggie foods because of Chinese New Year is coming, and it's also free of charge. So don't worry, you don't have to make donation. So Annie say made this announcement at the lunch banquet. And also last announcement made by Annie was we are not gonna to persuade you to believe in our Tibetan Buddhism nor any Buddhism. So don't feel nervous, don't be stressed out. We encourage you to stick with your own religion, to hold your own religious belief. So relax and enjoy the veggie food today, and then hold on to your own religion. That's what we want. And then Annie then said that unless you are very sharp in your capabilities, you can then change overnight on your religion, on your religious belief. Otherwise, it's not gonna be possible. Like my mother, Annie says, that my mother is a Taoist follower. She believes in Taoism. I cannot change her. It's been so many years, and I don't want my mother to change her religion at all. And then today also, Annie says that we also have Sangha from different traditions, from Mahayana Chinese Buddhism tradition. So we wanted to encourage everyone to pay respects to all Sangha from different tradition. And that if you wanted to use the toilet, please allow the Sangha to use the toilet first, and to line up behind them. And then so then there was more saying and sharing and English translation. And then in the middle of this program, Annie lastly addressed about what we can learn from Princess Wenten is that she is a one that really works very hard, day in and day out, and then very few people like her in the history, working so hard yet with so little trace in the history, and with so many sacrifices made for other people. So let's learn from her to be good people with good heart, interacting with others with good heart, and to be kind, as kind as like Princess Wenten. This is what we need to learn from her. And then there goes on further program. And Annie also says that in this restaurant, they light up candles on the table. And then this makes me think of, as we go around the island to do our services, we also, instead of candles, we light up the barter lamps. We do the barter lamp offerings and water offerings around the temple's island, around the temple, around the island's temples, different temples, Catholic temples, Christian churches, Catholic churches, as well as Taoism temples. As long as they allow us to light up the barter lamps there in their churches or temples, we would do. And then in the past few years, Taiwan has not had big disasters from human-made or natures. So we have been in pretty much good life and in peace. As we go in our services, as we go around the island, we also not only do the barter lamp and water offerings, we also buy fresh fruits, and to give these fruits or foods, veggie foods, to the people around the temples and the churches, to the local people. We wish everyone, all sentient beings, peace and a good life, and that is all. That is all we want. So we also want this today for everyone, every participant who comes to our party today. And then there was further sharing and talking and going on in the program. And there was another YouTube film called Going Around China for 10 years, addressing the Patala Palace. And in that film, there was a little bit saying about how Tibetan people still having a hard life nowadays, and due to the environment and the conditions over there. So Ani says about that we all have different karma from the past. So do the Tibetan people. Ani says that even though I'm a Tibetan Buddhism nun, but I don't always say things, only good things about Tibetan Buddhism. Sometimes we have to address a little bit about the realities and the truth. Everyone has his or her own karma, and so do the Tibetan people. Tibetan people, a lot of them are in exile. They have their own sufferings because they have their own karma. Taiwan, we ourselves also, we have our own karma. But compared with Tibetan people, we are much more fortunate, aren't we? Ani says that. See, you can see Taiwan is such a good island. We are having much better conditions than Tibetan people. Outweigh their conditions over there. So, why don't we to be a little bit more understanding and then a little bit more tolerant for people from different parts of the world, from different religion backgrounds, from different cultural backgrounds. We Taiwanese can be a lot more understanding and accepting and tolerating, aren't we? And if we go to India, Ani said that if you participants have gone to India, you will understand what I'm saying. If you go to Bodh Gaya, India, you will see a lot of beggars lying on the ground, begging for food and money. They have a lot of sufferings there. We don't see this much in Taiwan. And there is a belief that Taiwan is a blessed island by a lot of gods and goddesses and a lot of bodhisattvas. A lot of bodhisattvas made their vow to come to Taiwan to help us. So Taiwan is such a great island. So let's us, we Taiwanese, look at the good parts in people, look at the good parts in our environment. Let's not be so sarcastic all the time toward each other or pulling each other's legs. We tend to look at the bad things and the bad sides among us, each other, or in circumstances. Let's not do that, please. If we can imprint a little bit more Buddha Dharma in our alaya, that would be even better. So next life, we will have a better life. We not only, let's not complain too much about this life. Let's not be obsessed about getting more and more in this life. Let's just be kind, and that will be good enough. With a little bit kindness in our heart toward each other, that would be good. When we watch TV, we better choose the better channels or the better programs, the programs that can teach us with the programs. We better choose to watch the TV programs that can teach us good things. And if we are elderly people, because a lot of participants from yesterday are senior citizens. So if we are seniors, let's not scold at our children or grandchildren. Let's not do that. They may have their own stresses from the work or from the school. And then they may have their own pressure or their own concerns. So if we are their seniors at home, let's try to foster a little bit more understanding for them and put ourselves in their shoes. Everyone has his or her own karma and her own obstruction or affliction, her own suffering that he or she cannot tell others about. So if we are seniors, we have a lot more life experiences. We can try to foster understanding in our heart toward the juniors in our home. Maybe later on, they will be, through the love and acceptance and understanding given to them, they later on can be nicer or kinder to us. And they will be better people. Taiwan has been a good island, an island free from disasters. We don't really have huge disasters that much, especially this past year or two. We are free from disasters. So we need to really cherish and appreciate for what we have. And then we can be a little bit kinder in our heart. If we can then also consume a little bit more vegetarian food, that would be better. So we can maybe avoid or bypass further disasters in the future. So and then later on there was another YouTube program, another YouTube film was played. And then it was called Bodhisattva coming to this world again. 趁愿再来佛菩萨. So in this film, it was addressing about basically we can all be Bodhisattva. So let's not look down on those who were probably just a little younger than us or dressing poorly with not so good looks. Let's not look down on them. They may also be Bodhisattvas. They may be reborn Bodhisattvas from the past into our nowadays world. And then Ani also encouraged us to see each other as Bodhisattvas. And then so we can be nice and respectful toward each other. And lastly, not lastly, and then the program went on to play a YouTube film. Actually, it's a talk from His Holiness Gyalwang Karmapa, and in Chinese. So I did a little bit English translation in here, and it's a talk from His Holiness Gyalwang Karmapa on June 23rd in the year of 2017 at a Chinese temple in Canada. So it goes on the Karmapa's talk in English. I did the English a little bit. Ami Tuofo. Today I'm very honored to be here at the Lingyan Mountain Temple, Canada. First of all, I would like to greet the Venerable Sangha from this monastery and the other Sangha elsewhere, and all of the lay devotees. Everyone here, Jashidele, a very great day. Lingyan Mountain Monastery in Taiwan is Lingyan Mountain Monastery in Taiwan is a very well-known and auspicious monastery. It's a place of the field of very it's a place of the field of vast merits for sentient beings. I once heard many stories about the Great Master Miao Lian, who is the founder Albert of this monastery. That time, I thought if I had made it to Taiwan, I could have had a chance to visit the Great Master. But I am not a lucky one. Up until now, I have not been to Taiwan yet. The Great Master has already gone to Paranirvana, or called perfect extinction. Today, with coming here, I feel as if I'm seeing the Great Master in person. Today is a very auspicious day, and we have good connection. Though I don't know much myself, nor have not been very diligent at all normally, I may not be able to offer anything meaningful or beneficial to you. Yet, if I may, I feel I can share some things from my own experiences about this issue of what is important for a Buddhist. You may hear something about me, so let me say a little about myself now. I was born in a relatively remote place called Tibet. Before the age of 7, I was an ordinary child living an ordinary lifestyle. At the age of 7, I have been recognized as the reincarnation of the 16th Karmapa. Reincarnation is a special tradition or heritage in Tibetan Buddhism. Karmapa is the founder of the reincarnation tradition. Each Karmapa will leave a sacred letter of prediction before he passes away. This letter will say where the next reincarnation will be born and what his name will be. The Karmapa's primary principles or students, the Karmapa's primary disciples or students will then, based on this prediction letter, to go search for the next reincarnated one. With this letter, this is how they found me. In my hometown or home village, we people have strong belief or faith in Buddha Dharma, and we pay great respects to the Karmapa as well. Yet, I have never thought I would be one all of a sudden. I don't know what it would be like to be a Karmapa, nor having any ideas of how to be a one. In short, I left my hometown at the age of 7 and was sent to the main seat of the monastery for the previous Karmapas, the Trubu Monastery. Since then, I started a lot of rigorous learnings and practices. Very often, I feel, or many people may feel the same way, that I am or we are a Buddhist, or we are a person that learns Dharma teaching. Yet, there's a bigger question than this, which is, am I really a person who is kind, conscientious, and caring for others? I'm not very positive about this answer. I feel if I'm not a good person, let alone I can be a real practitioner, which will be even more challenging and difficult. Sometimes we may be sort of thinking that we seem to be pretty good, but actually we are not good enough. Talking about the Mahayana Buddhism, the yana means that there is a responsibility carrying and taking up the heavy loads. For a Mahayana practitioner, there is a sense of responsibility taking for sentient beings. But this is not so easy. Though we are learning and practicing Mahayana Buddhism and thinking that we are Mahayana practitioners, we very often don't have the sense of responsibility, nor have the courage or compassion to be responsible to all beings. I think this is a key and important problem to think about for us Buddhists. Now we have a big gap between ourselves and the Dharma. We are not one with Dharma. Dharma practice cannot just be a form of change or a way of doing things. You have to have some feelings in your heart. This is more crucial. The most important in each Dharma practice is to make changes in our mind, to tame the difficult mind, or to make alterations to our personalities that is not so good originally. For example, Lingyan Mountain Monastery is a place focusing exclusively on the practice of the recitation of a Buddha's name, and is a place of Pure Land teachings. Some people may think it's easy to just recite the Buddha's name, and it's just like recitation of Amitofo, and this is so easy. And in comparison with other practice methods, this is the easiest one. In fact, As we recite the name of a Buddha, we not only recite the name verbally, but more importantly is that we need to recite in a way that our mind and voice are one. In other words, we need to be able to recite and feel there's a special blessing arise in our mind from the Buddha. It's important to make your own mind in accordance with Dharma. Your daily practice seems to stay for a few minutes or a few hours at the monastery or in a shrine hall. We feel we practice well enough there. But most of the time, as affliction arises, we just let, but most of the time, as afflictions arise, we just let them be. We won't even have awareness toward them. It's going to be so hard to make progress in practice by this way. Practice is not done for a few minutes or a few hours at the monastery or in a shrine hall. The real authentic practice is done day in and day out, days and nights, at all times in your life, where there is a spirit of Dharma in your life, in your mind. Face your emotions truthfully. Be aware of your afflictions, and meanwhile, get along with others with the spirits of Dharma. I think this is the most important. Let's take a pause in here, and there's nothing more to address upon. In sum, I'm very happy to be here today at the Linyan Mountain Monastery. Although I have not gone to Taiwan, today this has made me feel I have arrived to Taiwan a little bit. Lastly, I'd like to say thanks to you all, the Sangha, and everyone that make this event possible today, and to have me here today. Thank you all very much. So this is the translation for the talk from His Holiness the 17th Glawangka Mapa. A talk on June 23rd, 2017 at Linyan Mountain Monastery in Canada. And then Ani went on to address lastly that let's make a good vow that we will be a good people, and also as we go to Taoism or various kinds of temples or churches, as we see, the Taoist temple will give away free foods to people who come to their temples. This is how we are doing. This is why we are doing the vegetarian banquets. The same reasons behind. We just wanted to offer food to people, wishing them to have a peaceful and wonderful life. And this is how we are doing in today's banquet. This is the mindset of doing this veggie banquet. And then we Taiwanese are born in such wonderful environment of Taiwan. Let's appreciate and cherish each other and for what we have in our island. And lastly, Ani invite the participants to share their before Ani ends the session by having participants share their experiences of having veggie diets. Ani then lastly addressed that furthermore about what she has learned from Princess Wenchen. She said that we've seen that Princess Wenchen at such a young teenage age to be able to go to a foreign region, and with her love, she devoted herself with her love for her husband. She then later on, for the next 30 years, to devote her love to the Tibetan people there. And I sort of want myself to learn from her spirits and to go around this island and work very hard to learn from everywhere and to learn to spread love and to be in harmony with whoever around me. And before, there was a great master called Xingyun Fashi, Xingyun Great Master. When he initially gave Dharma talk, there was only one audience that came to his talk. And today I have so many people, more than 25 people to come to my sharing today. I feel so wonderful. This is further showing us that Taiwanese people are really wonderful people, and Taiwan Island is a great place. Even Japan is not as abundant or as great as us, Taiwan. And there are, as far as I know, Annie said that I have learned from the internet that there are a lot of poor people in Taiwan, and there was one Japanese Sangha monk who made a vow to provide free foods every day for people who needs free food. And nowadays, Taiwan, we also have this free veggie food shops called Yu Hua Zai, free food veggie stands called Yu Hua Zai, but only a few, only were probably in a few places, not a whole lot of them. Our center is such a small group. Otherwise, we would like to provide even more veggie banquets in various places throughout the island. But we're such a small group. We wish we could be doing more in the future. We need more sponsorship. We need more people to join us for us to do more free veggie food offerings like today in various places throughout the island of Taiwan, and even to the worldwide. So now we can only start off by going to some veggie restaurants to offer veggie foods for people to come to enjoy veggie foods. And so so you and the people can just now and then occasionally consume the veggie food at the restaurant. And last week, Annie said we were at Yilan, the county of Yilan, and the veggie food at the restaurant, Mingzhen Veggie Restaurant, was really, really delicious and very gourmet. So we wanted to promote veggie foods from different restaurants, also for them to be more popularized. And then Annie went on to invite the participants to share their experiences of coming to today's program for having veggie foods. And then the first one said that Honorable Sanjiao Annie and everyone, I'm very honored to come to today's sharing and to learn about the veggie food. And this veggie food made me feel like I am a a romantic European people, because today it's in we are having this food at a French style restaurant. This makes me feel very enjoyable. And then for me, taking veggie food can eliminate killing animals. And if we can have more veggie foods, then we can protect more lives. I think having veggie food is a way of also a way of releasing lives. Why? It's because as we don't eat meat, we then are not killing any animals. This is an act of compassion. I hope that I can have more opportunities in the future to have more veggie foods. I am getting older, and I feel like my health is going down. It may be good for me also to have more veggie foods. And then I hope everyone also can consume more veggie foods to have better health. So in the year of 2020, I wish you all good health. And by having veggie food, you will be in good health, and you will have a lot of fortune to come. And the second participant shares that thanks first of all to Ani Sanjiao, this lovely Ani, and for to give us veggie food, veggie lunch banquet today. I have had too much oily food, and then today it's very good. I eat a lot of vegetables, and then I eat a lot of greens. And then I used to also go to Foguangshan and Siji and also have their veggie foods at their temples. And I feel like veggie foods are kind of fresh, refreshing, and then can make us healthier. And then we can be away from killing lives or animals. This is a good way for us to kill less. And then like today's film that were played earlier, we could learn that everyone around us is sort of like a Bodhisattva reborn. So, and maybe our own parents or families from past lives. So how can we eat them? And plus, eating meat is not so good to the health. It may cause you you to have high blood sugar and high blood temperature, high blood pressure, and so on and so forth. And Ani was sharing about that. Even though it's good to be a vegetarian, it might not be easy to not to consume meat or not to cut your meat consumption into zero all of a sudden. So let's not force on ourselves to be a vegetarian all of a sudden. Let's do it little by little. But with your aspiration, you can think of, the Australia right now has a huge fire in their forests, and then such a great disaster. If you can consume vegetarianism, you may gather a lot more merit. We can all together gather great merits to be transferred and dedicated to the Australia animals and people there, for them to be away from the natural disasters of fire soon. And then Ani also shared about, instead of, in addition to having vegetarian food, she also exercises a lot more. She has to walk a lot of rounds in the center a day for her to get better blood circulation. And also she figure out to soak her feet in hot water with herbal medicine for her to get better health. So there are other ways for us to sustain our good health, and we need to work on them all. Not only just sit and relax and wish the good health will happen by itself. So the third participant shared that I wanted to talk about from my own personal experience. Years ago, I heard from a lay lady telling me that if you can be a vegetarian, then your illness will be recovered at least half. And then since then, I have been a vegetarian, and then I really feel so. My health is getting a lot better, and then by having vegetable foods, vegetarian foods, I feel I am growing and fostering more compassion and kindness toward others. I thank for this vegetarian banquet given by Taiwan 368 and this center and this Ani very much. And then I hope all of you can consume more veggie food in the future, and then you will have better health in the future. That's the third participant's sharing. And then Ani add about one participant asked her about what are the 3 whites that should be avoided, that we should avoid in order to have better health. And he says the 3 whites are white sugar and white rice and white flour. These 3 kinds of whites can really cause damage to our health. And the fourth participant lastly shared that today I have a strong feeling all of a sudden that it's really good to have now and then some veggie foods. I probably cannot be a vegetarian all of a sudden, but I will try my best later on from today to have more veggie foods. And my wife is also a Tibetan Buddhist follower, and she can do some translation into English as well. And I would also share my experience of today with her. And from now on, this participant says that I would like to reconsider my diet habits. I would like to reconsider to consume more veggie foods and more veggie diets. And then Ani ask everyone to give him a big hand, and then urge everyone not to force so quickly on yourself to be a vegetarian all of a sudden. It takes time, it takes a while, and then we can slowly, by consuming veggie diet, to foster our compassion for eating less and less meat. And lastly, there was a film from a film that our center volunteers shot as we went to purchase the veggie cookies or crackers as the New Year gift for all the participants today. So there was a film about a grandma who was not feeling very well, and she was making all these veggie crackers to be sold at a very not so high price. And then we went to purchase them to be the gifts for all our participants today. And lastly, Ani invited everyone to sing the 7 Lotus Flower song in Chinese, and that's that wrapped up for the program for the day. Thank you all for listening and for listening to this English translation. See you next time. Happy New Year.